The reason they like reading my stuff is that I've always got real life examples to prove what I'm saying.
There's a lot of good people that listen to this podcast.
Other than God and my family, deer hunting would be next in line on my list of priorities.
From the bottom of our hearts, it's just fantastic and awesome to have the support that you guys are getting.
People ask me about expandable broadheads and love swings.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast with Don Higgins. I'm Terry Peer, brought to you by Osseo Gear. This is episode 153, Don. It's hard to believe we're at the end of January and this many podcasts in. Time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it's crazy. It slows down for a lot of people this time of year, but I know for all of us, this is our busy time between consulting and the mass amount of orders that are coming in from real world. It's just, this is almost as crazy as the beginning of hunting season for us.
Yeah, it is. I haven't been home much this week at all. Went to Missouri and Iowa both, but not enough hours in the day this time of year.
Yep. Let's talk a little bit about your consulting visits this week. You said you went out to Missouri and Iowa. How many farms did you get to see, and anything interesting?
Oh, there was some interesting stuff for sure. So Steve Shields went along with me to video the properties. We started in Missouri. We gave away a free consulting visit with the Whitetail Master Academy. So we went out, and our first stop was the winner of that. Probably it was a little bit more than an hour west of St. Louis. So we had to drive through my favorite town, but we met the winner, Adam, and his brother-in-law, John. They manage their family farm. It's about a little over 100 acres, I think. And so we met a couple of great guys there, and then moved on to Iowa. And we looked at 4 total properties over the next 3 days in Iowa. I just got home a couple hours ago, actually. Some real interesting stuff there. One of the clients, believe it or not, is a professional poker player. A young man. He went to Vegas. I don't know if it was out of high school. It must have been, because he's not that old. He went to Vegas and cashed in big time as a poker player, and moved back and bought a farm in Iowa to deer hunt, because he'd always deer hunted with his dad back here in the Midwest, when he was younger. And
right.
They were from an area that didn't have as big a deer as Iowa. So he came back and bought a farm in Iowa, and met with him today, actually. But first time I've ever met a professional poker player, and especially one who made enough money playing poker to buy a farm in Iowa. And
I'm guessing that there is fewer people that win enough to buy a farm than there is people who lost the farm.
I told him he couldn't pay me in poker chips. So and I was not going to play him a game of poker for double or nothing either, because
Right.
he knows what he's doing. And I had another, man, I'll tell you what, I go on and on about it every week, it seems like, but I meet the best people on these consulting trips. And I met a really great family yesterday. And the wife told me to tell you to quit talking about underwear on the podcast. She said that her husband bought some of those underwear at your urging.
Yeah.
Didn't like them at all. Had to throw them away. Didn't like them at all. She said you need to stick to deer hunting instead of talking about underwear.
I guess I had a bad. All credibility is lost from here on out.
Yeah. Then, well, I'll tell you what. We looked at 4 properties in Iowa, and I'm telling you what, I think a 200-inch buck could be killed off any of those 4 properties. Every one of them was really, really, really good, but there was 2 of them that were absolutely exceptional. And a couple of the best properties I've ever looked at. Iowa's just so much better than the rest of the country. They've got better deer habitat, but they got the age structure. And like every farm we went on, there was just buck sign everywhere, rubs and scrapes everywhere.
What's the common denominator? They don't let just anybody come in and hunt whenever they want. I mean, it's not hard to figure out. You got great habitat, great genetics, and you manage the deer herd versus pimp it out. Look what can happen.
Oh, I'm telling you, I seen some pictures of some of the bucks on some of these farms, and some that have been killed and some that are still alive on trail camera pictures. And you know, the saddest thing is, and I know the younger listeners are going to think I'm full of crap, but I remember the day when Illinois was better. And, you know, Illinois has better soil than a lot of these farms I was on.
Yeah.
And the deer, the bucks really are a product of the soil they're grown on. And we got better soil, but they got better deer because they got a better DNR and a better management program. They got better age structure. That's what it really boils down to is, you know, they've got way more older age class bucks than Illinois got today. And that's why they have so many giants. But I mean, that it's just a different world in Iowa compared to all the other places I go.
Yeah. And, you know, there's people that manage their property and try to do their best. But when we're dealing with wild deer, you can only control what you can control. And, you know, there's only so many neighbors that are going to follow the law versus say, you know, the cop out, it's legal, I'm going to go ahead and do it. When you have a state DNR that truly values and manages for the betterment of the herd, not the financial revenue that's generated from it, it can happen. So we can beat that horse all day long. It's not a hard topic to really figure out, even though people don't really like us, you know, calling it out like it is.
The truth is the truth. And, you know, it just saddens me because there's less and less deer hunters every year that remember when Illinois was as good as it was. I mean, you almost got to be 50 years old to remember when it was really good. And actually probably more like 55 years old. I know you guys have been coming up here, you and Patrick and some of your friends have been coming up here for over 20 years, right?
Yep.
But you guys weren't here until the 2000s. Back
late
in the
90s. Late 90s is when Patrick started coming up. I didn't come up till the early 2000s, but I know Patrick and his cousin, they all started coming up, I think, in like 96, 97, I believe. And the stories they talk about were just phenomenal. You know, a lot of when I came up was right around the when the EHD broke out is when I started really hunting, you know, Illinois hard. A couple years before that, and then we didn't hunt it for 3 or 4 years, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Well, the heyday really started in the late 80s, and I don't think we had as many big ones in the late 80s, but we didn't have near the hunting pressure either. You could get permission a whole lot easier. And then through the 90s, it just continued to get better and better. And, you know, in 2004, I remember that was the year I shot my first 200. Things were still really good, but it started going downhill soon after that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of factors in it, you know, as the popularity of the sport started coming, obviously, and we're not blaming outfitters, but, you know, it's a business. The outfitters moved in, which then got the leasing opportunities there. So then, you know, everything as it matures becomes a money sport. And I think before all of that transition happened was probably when the heyday was. The DNR wasn't looking to attract all of the hunters from out of state. The land was easy to access. There wasn't as many people on public, so public hunting was quite a bit different back then. You didn't have every gun hunter able to hunt with a crossbow. So there's a lot of factors that have kind of taken the little ripple out on the offshore to the tidal wave that it is today. But it's still a great place to hunt. I mean, we're still blessed to be able to chase them. It's just a shame when you see the heyday and see other states and how good it really could be. I guess that's really what makes it depressing.
Yep, for sure.
Well, I got to tell you, I went out to the SHOT Show in Las Vegas this week. You talked about your buddy that played poker. So we flew out I worked Monday in the office, and we flew out late Monday afternoon and didn't arrive till real late at night in Vegas. And I want to tell you, when I got off the plane and got in the Uber car to go to my hotel, I have never seen anything like this town. And it was probably, I guess it was around 3 o'clock Eastern time, so it was about midnight Vegas time. They're 3 hours behind me, 2 hours behind you. The size and scope, there's nothing on TV that prepared me for the size and amount of lights that town has. I mean, it's out in the middle of nowhere in the desert, and it is just crazy the amount of stuff going on there. But I'll tell you, I've been all over the world and had never been to Vegas. And I'll admit, for a big city like that, once did I feel unsafe. Was I disrespected? Was I talked too rude? Did not have one single poor service at a restaurant? Overall, it was a fantastic experience just dealing with the other people that were in Vegas. And I'm like, I can't believe this town. I didn't see one tranny or hooker or anything like that walking up and down the street or anything. And I got to thinking, there's one thing that's going on here in this city this week, and that's tens of thousands of gun enthusiasts and conservatives that believe in the Second Amendment are put in one place at one time. And it was a great experience, Don. I'm serious. I was in a big liberal city, and outside of some people smoking weed on the sidewalk because it's legal down there, I had a great time. It was a very nice experience. Food was good. Got to walk the show, but I got to thinking, it's probably not like that every day. It's probably just because all of our Second Amendment family and a bunch of conservatives invaded the Sin City, if you will.
Well, imagine a bunch of people with morals and ethics get together and there's no trouble. Surprise!
Imagine
surprise.
that. Imagine that.
The freak show liberals, if they had some kind of convention there, there'd be buildings burning and riots in the streets, and it wouldn't be safe to step out of your room.
I tell you what, we brought up a podcast a couple weeks ago after the ATA show about if trade shows dead, and I saw at least 3 other podcasts spin off and do their version of the same topic. But I want to tell you, this trade show was absolutely amazing. It was the biggest trade show that is not for my industry that I've ever been in. I think if you walked all day from open to close, it would take you 3 days just to walk by every booth that was in multiple halls on multiple sides. And all of it was either related to firearms, the hunting industry, or law enforcement and military. And I want to tell you, this show was huge. The energy there was really, really good, and it was packed. And I know it's not open to the public, but it was kind of a relief to see that many people get together and just have a good time. But at the end of the day, most of them were all good people, and that's the difference. But I know we said trade shows are going by the wayside, but this show was phenomenal. I had a really, really good time. I'm a gun enthusiast, and I won't lie, I was overwhelmed. There was so many different types of firearms from all over the world there. It was a pretty cool sight.
Did you see the Illinois governor while you was there?
I did not.
We heard that he's just signed a bill makes it illegal for us to have a semi-auto to buy or sell a semi-auto firearm. Yeah. I haven't been to Rural King lately, but I heard they pulled all their pistols, their handguns, their semi-auto handguns off the shelves. Yeah. Now, how long do you think that's going to stand before somebody takes it to the Supreme Court? I mean, it
needs to happen right now.
Yeah, exactly. It should have never become law, but I mean, the way these people waste time and money and energy trying to control things that they can't control. I mean, Chicago's got the most ridiculous gun laws in the whole nation, and yet it's a war zone.
But with that, why don't we just take a quick break and listen to a spot from our friends at Osseo. Remember, they're going to be at the Great American Show. So all of our friends listening on MTech and the call-in numbers, if you're going to be at the Great American Show in Pennsylvania, make sure you bring that wallet. Joe is going to have stock of Osseo camo on the shelf, and then we're going to be doing some features as we move through the spring, and with some new products that he's got coming out. So we'll be back in just a second with our seminar schedule.
Osseo Gear introduces a premium line of bow hunting gear that is unmatched, pairing nature's finest camouflage with the best technological innovations. Osseo Gear brings whitetail bow hunters the gear they need to be the best at their craft. The unique camouflage mimics the intricate feather pattern of North America's greatest predatory creatures. Designed for invisibility, built for comfort, and engineered for function. Visit OsseoGear.com. That's ASIO Gear.com to start shopping. Osseo Gear. Prepare to be invisible.
Phew. Sorry about that. I didn't think I was going to get through that last section or session.
I'm not going to cut that part out. For all of you who have been gone just about a minute for the Osseo commercial, I've been waiting approximately 12 minutes for Don to waddle to the bathroom and back. So we're glad to have you back, Don. Looks like you're sweating a little bit.
Oh, I'm telling you. Shoo. I feel a lot better.
Oh boy. All right. Well, let's real quick. We want to tee up. Let's not go in. We've mentioned all these phone numbers the last couple weeks, so we're not going to take the time to do it this week. But let's just tee up real quick where we're going to be the next couple weekends.
Yeah, this week, January 27th and 28th, I'm going to be in Plymouth, Indiana for the Tag Out Field Day. February 2nd, Terry and I will be at Middlefield, Ohio for a live recording of the podcast. The next day, there'll be a seminar at Millersburg, Ohio at JB's Feed and Supply. Then February 15th, I will be in Winona, Minnesota for Pfeiffer Hill Land Management's seminar. Then the next night, the 16th, I'll be in Falls City, Nebraska. Heartland Outdoors is having a seminar and dinner. And then on the 18th, I will be at the Whitetail Management Summit in Salina, Kansas, with Wes Delks and Dr. Bronson Strickland. So hope to see you folks at one of those events.
Yeah, fantastic. Can't wait to see everybody in Northern Ohio. You're going to be in Indiana next weekend, and then Northern Ohio the following weekend. We have two giveaway notices this week, and we're going to announce one from Vortex, one of the sponsors of the podcast, a little bit later in the show. But last week I talked about Hardcore Hammers and that story about how they responded to an email on Christmas Eve, and I asked everybody to go follow them on social media, and they gave us a coupon code of Giants that gets you 10% off, and then they donate an additional 10% to Lester's Feet and Purple Heart Homes. And I got an email back this week, and they were so impressed by how many orders they got and how many followers they got on social media that they actually wanted to thank all the Chasing Giants family. So there is going to be a giveaway, and they're only going to advertise this on Chasing Giants. So it's only the listeners or the followers of Don and I. If you go register for this giveaway at hardcorehammers.com/giants, you have to go to that /giants website, put your contact info. Just the listeners of the podcast, they're going to give away to 5 winners over $1,000 of prizes, and it's hammers, axes, and hatchets as a thank you. So no purchase necessary. All the rules for the contest are published on their website. Make sure you clearly understand that. The contest is from January 20th through February 12th. Go to hardcorehammers.com/giants. There's no link on the website. You have to directly type that in or follow Don or I on social media. We'll be sure to share it. But thanks to those guys, and thanks to all of you for going out and liking their social media posts and ordering stuff. That's pretty cool that that many people did it that they want to give back and say thank you with some free product to all of our listeners.
Yeah, that is awesome. This podcast, the reach we're having, it just continues to grow. And we've heard from more than one sponsor that they just can't believe the response they get from even a mention on Chasing Giants. So
yeah. And one of those is Chris Yates. Both of us got a phone call or text today that our new trucks for this year are in transit. So we're going to be scheduling probably in the next few weeks an opportunity to go meet up with Chris and pick up our new trucks. And we are both switching to GMC this year.
Yeah. Be the first GMC I've ever owned.
So Chris Yates has been able to expand and grow his business around the Kansas City area and now owns a GMC dealer. So for anyone looking for GMC product, and remember this deal on diesel trucks, that's not only for 3/4 ton and ton, but you can also, I believe that the half ton and the Suburban small diesel will apply to that special program. So if you have questions about that, reach out to one of us and we'll give you Chris Yates's number. And deliveries are getting a whole lot better. We ordered ours just a few months ago and they're already in. It's not like it used to be where we had to order them 8 months in advance. So I think things are getting a little bit better with supply chain right now for him.
Yeah, and I'd like to encourage anyone, whether you're buying a truck or a car, to check with Chris Yates and Victory Chevrolet. I know that there's been some folks that I've sent there that bought other vehicles. The family that I hunt on in Iowa, they bought a new Buick Enclave through Chris, and they listen to the podcast too. So
Yep.
Support our supporters. Those who advertise on the podcast. You don't have to buy a diesel truck. You got a full line of Chevy and GMC.
Well, people also have to understand who we are as people. We partner with the people behind the company, not the product. So we get a lot of product thrown our way, but stick with who the people are that are good. And if anything, what Chris has showed me over the last couple of years is how much he gives back, not only contributing to Lester's Feet, but also the other mission work that he does in the Kansas City area. And I saw a picture of him duck hunting with the Duck Commander family. He actually flew down to West Monroe recently, and I saw him in a picture of a boat with Jace Robertson and got to go duck hunting with all of the people from the Robertson family. So I know that had to be a treat for him.
Yeah, that's awesome. And doesn't he do some mission work in New Orleans? Is it?
Yep.
Somewhere down there. Yeah, I think it is.
So great guy. So yeah, if you want to support great people that have been blessed, his business has grown, but I think it's not because of the cars that he sells, but how he acts and, the kind of person he is in giving back. God's obviously blessed him the same way he has us. So we're going to move on to our questions. We have quite a few. Do you have any announcements before we start banging these things out? Because I want to try to get at least 5 done tonight.
Nope. I'm ready for the questions. Throw them at me.
All right, let's go with our first one here. I haven't seen these tonight, so this will be a surprise.
The first one comes from Scott Barkman from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. He says, Don, I've listened since the beginning, and it's crazy to think you guys are coming up on episode 152. Throughout the episodes, I've become curious on how you and Terry became friends, being that you live in different states and work in different occupations. Second question is about unkillable bucks. It's not often, but every now and then you hear someone in the hunting industry speak of this. A part of me believes a buck could be unkillable depending on where he beds, if he's mostly nocturnal and his travel patterns are unpredictable. I look forward to hearing the thoughts on this from one of the most notorious big buck slayers in North America. Take care, Scott.
Well, that question was obviously directed to you.
Well, how did we meet?
The first time was the Illinois Deer Classic. You had a tree business booth set up and you had just gotten your non-typical buck back. That was the first time I met you.
That would have been in spring of 2005. So I met Patrick in you wasn't with him at the ATA show then, was you?
No, I wasn't at ATA that year, but you were carrying the rack around at ATA,
Right.
and then you had it mounted by the Illinois Deer Classic, which was the first time I'd met you. So a couple months in between those two.
Yeah. I couldn't remember if you was at the ATA because he had Danny York with him, and I think maybe his brother Brian was with him.
Brian and maybe one other. That was when we used to jump in a Suburban or a car, and we'd drive back when the trade shows were awesome. We'd drive all the way to the Iowa Deer Classic just to go to these deer shows. We used to all pile up and eat a bunch of JTM barbecue and hard-boiled eggs and see who could last the longest in a Suburban with the windows rolled up for 6 and 8 hour drives. That was back in our youthful days.
That does not sound like fun at all. I can only imagine. I'm glad I missed that one.
How did that all? I think that was when we all had aspirations of being on a film crew, and we started out almost, I think, filming together. That was our first year with Matthews. You'd already worked with Matthews by then, but I think after you'd shot that non-typical buck, you wanted to start videoing also every hunt. So I think that's how it all started.
Every hunt up until that point, I had not carried a video camera, and a lot of people know the story. I was accused of wrongdoing with that buck. Had him taken from me for a short period of time. I ended up getting him back and everything. But from that hunt on, I have always carried a video camera with me to prove whatever I'm saying. So I haven't shot every buck on video since then, but most of the bucks I've shot on video since then. The recoveries I get on video, it's just, it all started with that one buck for me having to, cover my butt on everything I do just to prove that I'm doing it legal. So I've got just hours and hours of video footage, but it all started after that one hunt back in 2000. It was December 1st, 2004. But yeah, Patrick and them had Simpson Outdoors, and they was looking to either start a TV show or something. And that's where it all started. So that's how Terry and I met.
And then we didn't talk for a while. Our paths didn't cross. I wanted nothing to do with videoing after the first year. I hated it. And then you guys at Real World were wanting to rebrand the company, and then you actually hired me to rebrand it from Real World Wildlife Seed to products. And then we started working together pretty much on a daily basis since then.
Yeah. Well, there's not a week goes by that we don't talk, but sometimes it's just here right before the podcast or whatever, but it's been pretty regular for several years now. And Terry's had my back more than once when I needed it bad. So he's become a very good friend. Appreciate it more than he knows.
The interesting thing is our relationship always hasn't been the best, but we had some, I'm not going to go into details, but I think it's a testament about how you have to live your life. And sometimes you have people in your life that try to drive wedges in between people. And Don and I both had one of those people in our life. And, it caused division. And you and I actually went a period of time without speaking, kind of mad at each other for reasons that weren't really legit. And when we finally figured out what was going on and put things into perspective and put the right people back in their place, I think the businesses have been flourished. Our relationships gotten better, and God sure blessed us since then. So I think a lot of it is just who we surround ourselves with as much as who we are.
No doubt about it. It's kind of funny because in a lot of ways, Terry and I are different as night and day. He's got a lot of talents that I don't, and my weaknesses are his strengths. And he's just become a very good friend of mine, and blessed to have him as part of my life. So
we don't agree. We don't agree on everything as much as people want to think we do, but that's okay. You got to challenge each other and work where your strengths are. And I think that's what we've done with the company, especially too. So it's been a positive thing. So Let's
What
about unkillable bucks?
Well, there's a lot of variables with unkillable bucks. So I think if there's a buck that's living on property that can be hunted, I don't think there's such thing as an unkillable buck. Now, if that buck is staying on a place where it's not legal to hunt, well, absolutely, he's unkillable. And my opinion of that has changed because several years ago, I wrote an article for Deer and Deer Hunting, and the title was "Are Some Bucks Unkillable?" And at that time, I said that for a bow hunter, some bucks are unkillable. But I've changed my mind. I think today that if I can gain access to the property I need to, I think I can eventually kill just about any buck. I'm not going to say I can kill every buck, but and there's a lot of factors. If there's a lot of other hunting pressure, if that buck's living on public land where there's just a lot of human intrusion, then he becomes really hard to kill. So, a lot of it depends on where that buck spends his daylight hours, but I don't think there's as many unkillable bucks as most people do. They may be unkillable on certain properties, but the property, for an example, you may be hunting a property and you're getting nighttime pictures only of a mature buck. He may be unkillable to you, but that doesn't mean he's unkillable to the guy on the next property over.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't buy the fact that a buck all year long only moves at dark.
Oh, no doubt about it.
So,
especially when
so
he's
the people, the people, or late season.
Yeah.
When pressure kicks in, I can see where a buck might be really picky, but I don't buy the fact that a buck never gets out of his bed unless it's dark. It just might be that he's 2, 3, 4, 5 farms away from you if you're only getting pictures of him at 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. I would rather get a picture 10 minutes after daylight or after dark, than at 2 o'clock in the middle of the night, because I have no idea how far that buck's traveled until 2 a.m. to get to me. If I get a picture of him just after shooting light, usually that means he's fairly close.
Right. Yeah. So the unkillable buck thing, it might have a little bit of merit, but I don't think it's near to the extent that some people think it is.
Okay. Good question.
Next one comes from Ben Allgood from Gonzales, Louisiana. He says, recently I was blocked by Don on Facebook and Instagram. Surprise, surprise, Ben. He says, I only mentioned the fact that giant miscanthus was found in the wild in Indiana and that Idaho has put it on their invasive list. Both of those facts can be found at the links below in case you want to verify. I don't know the reason to run from those facts and block people and hide from those facts, except that it is about the money. You always say to look at the company and what they're trying to sell you. I just don't see why pushing a product that might have the potential to escape by maybe pollinating other new cultivars is the right thing to do. But I do get a lot out of your podcast and agree with most of what you say. I've listened to them all from day one, and I even had a question read and received a shirt. I will continue to wear the shirt and listen and watch. Thank you. Well, Ben, first of all, thank you for your submission. I went on a tear recently, blocking people and deleting their comments because there is a person who strives to be relevant in the hunting industry who thinks that miscanthus is invasive, and he shared a post that I made on some radical tree hugger environmentalist extremist website, and I was absolutely bombarded with idiots making all kinds of derogatory comments towards me. And literally, folks, I had to block somewhere around 250 to 300 people over just a small few day period. And I'm sure
very few of them were hunters.
Almost none were hunters. And Ben, you must have got caught up in that mix. Now, I do want to address something that you're wrong about, and that is you did send 2 links with your submission. And I went to both links and checked them out. So first of all, one link, and you're claiming here in your submission that in the state of Indiana, giant miscanthus was found invasive. Well, the link that you shared clearly told a different story. One single plant of miscanthus was found in a field, and nobody knows how it got there. One plant in the entire state of Indiana and the entire country really was found, and they don't know how it got there. It could have got there. Who knows how it got there? One plant is not invasive. And then you mentioned the state of Idaho making it putting it on the invasive list. I did not see that anywhere on the link you provided. In fact, I found another link, another website that clearly states giant miscanthus is not on the invasive species list in any state whatsoever. Now, some of you in the hunting industry have gotten so wrapped up on the nonsense that's being promoted by a bunch of narrow-minded people within the hunting industry on this invasive stuff. I want to tell you something. The red cedar tree is 1,000 times more invasive than giant miscanthus, and it's a native. There's a long list of native plants that are far more invasive than giant miscanthus and a lot of other non-native plants. It's a feel-good idea that's being promoted at universities. You can just tell some of these people that are way too educated for their own good that they've lost all common sense. And this topic and some of the morons that were commenting on my post, wishing all kinds of harm on me and my family and everything else because I would dare plant a miscanthus plant. These people got me pretty fired up. But anyway, there are all kinds of native plants that are 100 times more invasive than these non-natives that you people get so fired up about. Use some common sense, people. Giant miscanthus is absolutely 100% not invasive whatsoever. Right before we got on here tonight, Terry was actually responding to some clown that sent a question in about invasive. If you don't want to plant it, don't plant it. I don't care if you plant it or not. It's not about the money. Don't make me out to be a greedy bad guy just because you're so narrow-minded that you can't accept the fact that this plant didn't originate in this country, but it still might be good. End of rant.
All right. So Ben, number one, I don't think anyone can accuse us of filtering since we used your question, but I want to commend you in the tone and how you framed the question. Very, very stand up. I appreciate you you people got to realize that basically Don and I were told everything to the extent of we're going to hell to they wished harm on our family, borderline threatening us that they were going to do something to us physically. That's the tone, and that's why we get a little bit aggravated like Don just did, which all of that isn't directed towards Ben. We can have a difference of opinion that you mentioned. We appreciate you listening to the podcast, and it's okay that you don't agree with all of us, but to further explain why you were probably guilty by association, that's how extreme it was. It wasn't people writing comments like you asked this question, which I think was perfectly fine. You were asking a question and did it in a friendly manner that we can talk about. Unfortunately, there was a lot of people around that time that were basically borderline death threats to us. I shouldn't say that. That's exaggerating. They weren't death threats, but wishing harm on us and our families. So I hope you understand. We can always go back and look at reinstating you. Obviously, if anytime somebody gets blocked and it's by accident, please just bring it to our attention, because we do get a lot of extremist side of it. So But hope that makes a lot of sense. People start stating stuff from this university and that university. People, you got to understand there's different varieties of miscanthus out there. Some of it is invasive or not sterile. I shouldn't even say it's invasive, but it will seed. That's why you have to be careful and trust the people in the varieties that are selling it. And trust us, our livelihoods are dependent on this business. We wouldn't be doing something on our own farms and with our company that we didn't research. So thanks for the question, Ben. No, you got you. Did I get you teed up for another one?
Yeah. So
be careful. You're going to have another code brown if you get too fired up and pinch one out.
Well, if I do, it's going to be right here in my seat because I'm not leaving until I'm done talking. So, Ben, you mentioned you got blocked on Instagram and Facebook. So, earlier in January, my New Year's resolution was I'm not putting up with stupidity on social media anymore. I'm blocking people. But I also said in that post that if you feel that you were wrongly blocked, maybe I took something you said, wrong, that I encouraged anyone to send me an email, a private message, however you can get a hold of me. I mean, everybody's got my website. You can get on my website and send me an email. And Ben, I think that I would have no problem, unblocking you. I appreciate, as Terry said, the way you submitted the question, and I'll take the heat, throw it at me as long as you do it respectful, and you did it respectful. I'll reply to it, and I'll even reply to it right here on the podcast where 30,000 people a week can listen to the reply. So if you want to be unblocked, just send me an email or something. I'll be glad to do that. So appreciate the way you did submit your question, though.
I'm not a real smart guy, but I don't understand something you just said, and I'm guessing that some people are doing the same.
Okay.
You block somebody, but then you post it. If I blocked you, you can't just send it.
No, I did that before I blocked anybody.
Oh, okay.
I did that. No, I did that before I blocked anybody. I did that if you go back to January 1st, look at my post from January 1st.
I'm letting you clarify that one, buddy, because that one didn't come out.
Sound right?
You'll get 60 emails about that one. Is how do you block somebody and then tell them to email you later? So he warned people ahead of time is what he's trying to say.
I warned people ahead of time. Exactly.
So again, Ben, thanks for the question. We know that you're not the type of people that we're talking about. Appreciate the tone in your question. Always able to talk about stuff, and we'll answer anything on this podcast. That's for sure.
Hey, we're going to send you another shirt too, Ben.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, do you want to take a break and let's talk about the Vortex giveaway?
Absolutely. So our friends at Vortex are going to give away over $5,000 in optics. So you can get spotting scopes, binos, scopes for your guns. They just got a long list of optics. And, it's really easy. All you got to do is go to vortexnation.com and sign up there. Maybe you'll be the winner of the $5,000 Vortex giveaway.
Yep. So anything you want, whatever you're into, I'm really excited to build this new. I'm glad I'm not an Illinois resident to build my new folding buttstock AR. Although I do have approximately 110 days to get it done. So,
wow.
Excited about that venture. It's gonna have a vortex on the top of it. We've already decided that.
I'm going to have to get me another Vortex scope because, believe it or not, I've been buying some guns, Terry. I bought a 350 Legend the other day.
Did you?
For some doe patrol on this. As the doe herds build on my farm, I find it sometimes difficult to shoot the exact doe I want with my bow. I want to shoot those ones that have the twin buck fawns. So Illinois is very, very, very generous with their late doe seasons. And so I'm going to break out the new gun and shoot a few next year.
Yeah, that will be the first time in how many years a firearm has been discharged on that property?
Phew, it's a lot. It's literally decades.
Besides coyote hunting, you let coyote hunters come in with thermal.
Yeah.
But actual deer hunting, 30 years, 20.
Well, actually, I've never deer hunted with a gun. Oh yeah, I did. Way back, that was about. Well, my grandpa was still alive. That'd have been 30 years plus ago. I did shoot at a buck and miss a buck on this farm way 30 some years ago. But got to do what you got to do. And
then there was that one time that you and Wes Delks did that 4th of July video
yeah.
where he walked by. I need to find if I can find a copy of that, I'm gonna splice it in and put it right here so everybody can see it. That was quite comical. that was a 4th of July giveaway, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I was smoking a cigar with a "Make America Great Again" hat on.
If I can find a copy of that, I'll put it in here before we move on to question number 3.
So the next one comes from David Adams from Reidsville, North Carolina. He says, if I sign up for the Whitetail Master Academy, will I be able to view all the questions and info that you have posted from the start of the academy? I really enjoyed the podcast and I've learned from it. Thank you for all you and Terry do. God bless. Yes, David, we continue to build the video library on the Whitetail Master Academy. So every video that's ever been put on there is still on there, and we'll just keep archiving those in the various categories. So you'll be able to see them all. The live events, we got another live event coming up this Monday, Monday evening, where the members can submit their questions on a basically it's a live podcast just like we're doing now, except it's live. I mean, the questions pop up on the screen as the viewer types them in and I answer them. Then you can put me on the spot and I don't even have time to rehearse my answers or anything. So Code Brown ain't gonna stop that.
Occasionally I'll sign in under a alias and ask some really pointed questions to Don, and then he figures out it's me.
It doesn't take long to know who's behind some of that. There's no Code Browns on the live events either. You just grin and bear it.
All right, so let's put the next one up here. Oh, this is a good question.
This one comes from Matthew Montag from Goshen, Ohio. He says, hey, Don and Terry, do you recommend doing any kind of trail camera maintenance in the late winter, springtime? For example, Terry has mentioned how moisture buildup can ruin cameras. Are there any tricks you would recommend for preventing things like this to happen to help cameras last longer? Thanks and God bless. Well, Matthew, I've got a policy or I don't know how I do things with my cameras when I pull them in the springtime or late winter that I think would probably help a lot of our listeners. And that's why I picked your question. So when I go out to pull my cameras, you know, actually about this time of the year, I've already started pulling a few, not many, but a few. So when I pull those cameras, I leave that card in it. I don't pull the card out of the camera. I leave the card in the camera, and then I bring camera and all into my house, into my office, and then I'll pull the card out of those one at a time, and I'll view the cards. If there's anything wrong, you know, showing up on the card, I know which camera it came from that way. Instead, if you would pull all those cards out and then you gotta, well, this camera's screwing up, it's not doing something right. Well, then you don't even know which camera it came out of. But by leaving that card in the camera when I bring the camera in, it helps me to pinpoint exactly any troubled cameras. So I just wanted to throw that out to everybody, and the question was a perfect opportunity to do that.
That's a great tip. I don't think you've ever talked about that on the podcast before. Yeah, but you're right. You end up with a bad card, bad camera. You don't know which the combination was or what it came from. Yep. End up putting it back out next year. There's a resource out there that I'll tell you about, Matthew. Exodus Trail Cameras. If you go to their YouTube page, they actually have really good video about how to maintenance cameras, and they do a lot of, I'm just going to say a lot of like videos that are good for the industry that don't necessarily promote their camera. That's why I like them a lot. The guys that own that company are really, really good guys. Actually, everybody that works there is really good guys and friends of Don and I. But they put a lot of content out. They'll talk about the reason you take your batteries out, leaving the door open for a period of time in your house to let it kind of dry out. One of the things that people that I've seen that are really bad about is, especially when it's cold and they're taking their cameras in, they'll throw them kind of in the back of a side-by-side or let them bang around really hard. That's an electrical circuit board in there that especially when it's really cold, pretty fragile. So I would just suggest look at that YouTube page. They have some stuff in there about maintaining and off-season cameras and pulling them out. But the big thing is take battery trays out, take batteries out, and let them dry inside and get those things completely dry. You don't want any of that moisture causing corrosion. So I always throw, those silicon packs that you get inside of shipments and stuff. If I have a box that has my trail cameras in it, I usually throw a couple of them in there to try to soak up any moisture that's there. All right. Well, here's the last question of the night.
Last one comes from Mike Soyster from Martinsburg, Pennsylvania. He says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Love the podcast. Your openness about your faith and beliefs is a breath of fresh air. I know you guys have talked about this before, but please refresh my memory. Are you looking for a certain buck to doe ratio on your property, or is your philosophy the more the merrier? Thanks, and God bless, Mike." Well, Mike, the reason I picked your question is because I've been getting this question a lot from my consulting clients. What should I be looking for in buck to doe ratios? And here's my answer across the board. Almost nobody listening to this podcast controls enough ground to have much influence at all on a buck to doe ratio. That's something that's got to be handled on, a big scale, like almost a statewide scale. Our state game agencies are the ones that should be doing this, and sadly, most of them are not whatsoever. But at the very least, I would think by county or on a county scale, you could shoot 20 does on your property and 30 more show up from your neighbors. You're just not going to have any impact on that buck to doe ratio as a landowner. Even if your whole neighborhood was on the same program, well, all the properties surrounding that neighborhood, you're going to pull in does. So you're going to have very little input. So what's that mean? Well, you're going to have, I think you should shoot does. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying just forget shooting does. You definitely should try to do your part. But for you to set a goal of, say, I want a 3-to-1 buck to doe ratio, for every 3 does, I got an antlered buck on the farm. You're going to just waste a lot of energy and have a lot of headaches trying to achieve something like that. So shoot some does, shoot as many as you can. But as far as the exact ratio, just forget it, because you're not going to have any impact, or you're not going to be able to change it any way noticeable.
All right. So pointed question to you. Are you more concerned about the number of does you shoot or which does you shoot on your farm if you're truly managing the property?
Well, if I had to pick, it would be the specific does. You want to shoot those does that's got the twin buck fawns, no doubt about it. I also like to shoot the older does because from a hunting standpoint, they're pretty sharp. They come through the woods and they bust you in your tree. And guess what? Every time they walk by that tree, they're looking for you for the rest of their life, where a young doe is not. I do think an old doe is definitely better. And I think research has proven it. She's better at raising fawns. Her fawns have a whole lot better odds of reaching weaning age or whatever, or seeing their first birthday than a fawn born to a young, inexperienced doe. But an approach I've taken for a lot of years on my farm, I had to back off whenever EHD hit really bad in 2012. But I was up to that point, I was trying to shoot 2 does for every buck that was killed here. So if 3 bucks got shot on my property in a certain season, I was trying to shoot at least 6 does. And I had to really back off of that in 2012 when EHD hit and just about wiped out our deer herd as we tried to build it back up. And just this season, for the first time, I've tried to get back to that. I've tried to get back to shooting 2 does for every buck. And as I just mentioned, I bought a gun to try to help me do that moving forward, because we're starting to get plenty of deer again.
Yep. I'm really shocked that you're going to gun hunt on your property. That's whoever says you're set in your ways and you never adapt. That's proof right there.
I'm not opinionated at all either, am I?
Well, based on how long it took you to go to the bathroom a little bit ago, I think you also ate Mexican for dinner, is what my guess is.
You know what? It wasn't for dinner, but it wasn't too long ago.
All right. So what do you got cooking this week outside of heading to Northern Indiana later in the week?
I've got a couple of plans to do for my consulting clients over the next couple of days. I've got all the aerials marked for those properties. I mark the aerials at the very least. I mark up the aerials the night when I come in, so that while it's all fresh in my mind, most of the time I actually get the plan done as well. But I got the last couple I did. I've got the aerials marked, but I did not get the plans done. I need to finish those and then heading to Northern Indiana, and I'm only home for not very long, 2 or 3 days, and then I'm going to Ohio for about a week, looking at properties and those seminars and such we talked about. So how about you? You got a full week ahead of you?
I'm going to be consulting through the weekend, and then I have to be in the office for a little bit. I've been traveling so much. I've been on the road since, I think, every week since the first week of December. So I'm going to get back on Monday and then spend a week in the office catching up. I got a couple new employees starting that I need to work with them for a little bit, and hopefully get caught up on some work. So that's my plan. So then prepare for our trip to Ohio. I'm excited to see all of our friends around Millersburg. We have a lot of friends and a lot of podcast followers up there. So I'm excited to be able to spend a couple days with all of those people up there. They've been a big supporting group of ours for many, many years, even well before the podcast.
Yeah, Millersburg and Middlefield. They're about, I think they're an hour and a half apart.
About an hour and a half, I believe.
Yeah, so you'll see Terry and I both there. Hope to see you at that live podcast, folks. Bring your questions for Terry. You can bring your underwear questions for Terry and your Code Brown questions for me.
Should I bring a pair of demo underwear and hold them up for everybody so they can see what it is?
As long as you don't try them on and model them, that will be fine. Well, but if you go to modeling the underwear, I'm quitting.
Your consulting friend told me I wasn't allowed to talk about it anymore, so she's probably rolling her eyes at me right now. I'll have to come up with something new to talk about now, since I'm not allowed to talk about underwear.
Well, the client said that he was not impressed with those underwear, and I told him that I've been wearing the same one since high school. I don't see any reason to change.
But not the same type, the same actual pair. I'm sure you've been wearing since underwear.
Yeah. Why, do some people have more than one pair?
Well, I can tell you that Wes Delks and his wife Madison are looking at building an addition onto their house to store the extra rolls of toilet paper that everyone is giving him on the consulting visits. He says that about every place he goes that they give him a free pack of a toilet paper. So thanks to all those who are helping a young family get established with their toiletry needs.
You know, I was in Kentucky. I was on a property in Kentucky the other day, and I told the client, I said, I got to step over here and take a leak. And he says, I better not find a half a sock over there. Oh, I get it, Charlie.
Oh boy.
Folks, this is as real as it gets. I had a cramp in my leg. You think this podcast isn't real? Just listen to this version.
Yeah, people think we edit all this. We do a lot of post-production. That's about as real as it gets right there.
We're just a couple of rednecks. I'm telling you, code browns and leg cramps right in the middle of the podcast.
All right, everybody. Don't forget about the 2 giveaways. Go out to hardcorehammers.com/giants they're going to give away over $1,000 to only our podcast listeners. If you go sign up for that, and then also Vortex Nation, they're giving away $5,000 of free product this year. So make sure you go out to those sites, follow the rules. And once again, everybody, appreciate your patience with us rednecks out here trying to laugh and get through a podcast every week. Sometimes it's more of a challenge than others, that's for sure. But we appreciate the support.
Yep. God bless everyone. Have a great week.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Via Farm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.